I never thought my small farm would ever be noticed by anyone outside of our little valley. For years, my life was a steady rhythm of early mornings, muddy boots, the steady hum of the tractor, and the quiet satisfaction of watching seeds turn into food. To me, that was enough. Recognition, awards, those were things for big farms with shiny equipment and polished brochures, not for someone like me who patched up fences with wire and used a tractor that coughed every time it started. But I guess life has a strange way of surprising you. It was late autumn when it happened. I remember the morning so clearly because it was bitter cold, the kind of cold that makes your hands sting even through gloves. I had just finished feeding the cows and was on my way back to the farmhouse when I noticed a white envelope sticking out of the old metal mailbox by the gate. Usually, our mailbox only held bills, seed catalogs, and the occasional letter from relatives. But this envelope was different. It had a gold seal stamped in the corner and a weight to it that made my heart beat a little faster. I pulled it out, tore it open with my rough fingers, and began to read. Dear Mr. Reynolds, we are pleased to inform you that your farm has been nominated for the Regional Agricultural Achievement Award. This award recognizes outstanding farms in our state for their dedication, innovation, and contribution to the community. I froze. My boots sank into the frost-covered ground as I read the words again and again, convinced I must have misunderstood. Me? Nominated? There had to be a mistake. I never even applied for anything like this. Who would have thought to nominate us? I rushed inside, the letter clutched in my hand. My wife Sarah was at the kitchen table, peeling apples for a pie. The smell of cinnamon and butter filled the air. She looked up when I burst in, my cheeks red from the cold and my eyes wide. What's wrong? She asked, startled. I handed her the letter without saying a word. She wiped her hands on her apron, took it, and began to read. Her eyes widened as she reached the second paragraph. Oh my goodness. They want us to attend the ceremony next month in the Capitol. Do you understand what this means? I sat down heavily, the old wooden chair creaking under me. I don't understand any of it. I never signed up for this. Someone must have made a mistake. She shook her head, her lips curling into a smile. Mistake or not, your name is on it. Our farm's name is on it. And they wouldn't send something this official if it wasn't real. I rubbed the back of my neck, feeling both excited and nervous. But what if we go and it's embarrassing? What if they realize they sent it to the wrong person? She reached across the table, her hand warm against mine. Then we'll laugh about it on the way home. But what if it's real? What if all the hard work you've done finally gets noticed? Her words settled into my chest like a glowing ember. Still, doubts swirled in my head. I remembered all the countless mornings when I questioned if keeping the farm alive was worth it. The debt we had carried for years, the repairs that never ended, the late nights when I worried if the harvest would cover the bills. And yet, here I was, holding an invitation to something I never thought possible. Later that evening, I called my neighbor, Mark, an old friend who had his own farm down the road. Mark was one of those people who always had a laugh ready, but he also spoke his mind. I told him about the letter, expecting him to be as skeptical as I was. Instead, he chuckled loudly through the phone. See, Reynolds, I told you all those long days would pay off someday. They don't hand out those nominations for nothing. Someone must have noticed the way you've been running things. But I don't even know who would nominate me. I've never put myself out there like that. Doesn't matter, he replied. What matters is that they did. You should be proud, man. You deserve it. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling above me felt lower somehow, as if the whole world had shifted slightly. Sarah was already asleep beside me, her breathing steady, but my mind spun in circles. I thought about all the years we'd spent here, about when we first bought the land. Just a couple of acres of rough soil and an old barn barely standing. Everyone told us we were crazy to take it on. Too much work for too little payoff, they said. Maybe they were right, but we didn't listen. We worked, day after day, year after year. And now, Somehow, this letter had found its way into our mailbox. The next morning, I woke up groggy but strangely energized. The letter sat on the kitchen counter, and every time I looked at it, a mixture of pride and fear twisted in my stomach. Pride because it felt like someone, somewhere, had seen what we'd done. Fear because I didn't know what was expected of us now. Were we supposed to prepare a speech? Were there judges? Would people laugh at me if I showed up in my old suit, the one that barely fit anymore? Sarah noticed my worry. "We'll figure it out," she said gently. "One step at a time. For now, let's just accept that this is happening. You've been given recognition, and it's something we should celebrate, not fear." For the first time, I allowed myself to smile. Maybe she was right. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a mistake. The days after the letter arrived felt strange. Life on the farm went on as usual. Cows still needed feeding, the fences still sagged in places, and the tractor still rattled as if it might fall apart at any moment. But something in the air had shifted. Every chore I did felt heavier with expectation, as if someone, somewhere was watching and taking notes. Sarah was the first to bring up the obvious. "We'll need to go shopping," she said one evening as we sat by the fireplace. The flames cracked and snapped, filling the room with warmth. "We can't show up at an award ceremony in that old suit. It's practically held together with stitches." I frowned. "It's fine, it still fits." "Barely," she teased. "Besides, this is important. If they're going to recognize you, you should look like the man who deserves it." I sighed, but deep down I knew she was right. The thought of walking into a room full of strangers and their pressed clothes and polished shoes made my stomach twist. I'd never been comfortable in crowds, let alone on a stage. But if we were going, I had to face it. The following weekend, we drove into town. It was a small place with one main street lined with stores that looked almost unchanged from decades ago. The clothing shop was run by Mrs. Hayes, a woman in her 70s with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through you. She helped me into a suit that actually fit, dark gray with a clean white shirt. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. My calloused hands and weathered face still gave me away, but for a moment, I felt respectable. "You clean up well," she whispered with a smile, squeezing my hand. I shrugged, embarrassed, but I couldn't deny that seeing myself that way gave me a flicker of confidence I hadn't felt in years. As the days passed, neighbors started to hear about the nomination. News travels fast in small towns. Mark told everyone at the feed store, and soon people I barely knew were congratulating me when I stopped by for supplies. Some clapped me on the back, others shook my hand with a grin. Their words warmed me, but they also made me anxious. What if I let everyone down? What if I stood there at the ceremony only to lose to someone bigger, better, more deserving? One night, Sarah found me sitting outside on the porch, staring out at the dark fields. The stars hung low and bright above us, but all I could think about was failing. "What if it's all a mistake?" I asked quietly. "What if I go there and make a fool of myself?" She sat beside me, pulling a blanket over our shoulders. "You've worked harder than anyone I know. You've built this place with your own hands. If anyone deserves recognition, it's you. But their farm's bigger than ours, more modern, with more money. How could we possibly stand a chance?" She looked at me, her eyes steady. "Maybe this isn't about being the biggest or the richest. Maybe it's about heart, about showing people what it means to care for the land and the animals, even when no one is watching." Her words settled in me, quieting the storm of doubt just enough to let me breathe. The weeks slipped by faster than I expected. Suddenly, the day of the ceremony was only a morning away. We packed the car the night before,
my new suit hanging in a garment bag, Sarah's dress carefully folded, and a cooler of sandwiches and coffee for the road. It wasn't a long drive to the capital, but it felt monumental, as if we were crossing into another world. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept playing out scenarios, me tripping on the stage, forgetting what to say, or worse, sitting there in silence while someone else's name was called. By the time the first light crept through the curtains, I felt like I had already lived a dozen lifetimes in my head. Sarah brewed coffee while I loaded the car. The farm seemed unusually quiet that morning, as if it too was holding its breath. The cows grazed calmly, unaware of the importance of the day. I gave them extra feed, almost as if I was saying goodbye before leaving them behind, even if only for a day. The drive was long but beautiful. The trees lining the highway were bare now, their branches reaching toward the pale winter sky. Sarah kept the radio low, a hum of country music filling the silence. Every so often, she'd squeeze my knee or remind me to breathe. I didn't say much. I was too busy battling the nerves that coiled in my chest. We arrived in the capital by midday. The city felt overwhelming, its tall buildings and endless traffic a stark contrast to the quiet fields of home. The hotel where the ceremony would take place was grander than anything I'd ever stepped foot in. Chandeliers sparkled in the lobby, and the carpet was so thick it muffled our footsteps. I felt like a fish out of water, tugging at my collar as I followed Sarah to the check-in desk. "Don't slouch," she whispered playfully. "You belong here as much as anyone else." I nodded, though I didn't quite believe it. That evening, there was a dinner for all the nominees. Walking into the ballroom, I was hit with a wave of voices, laughter, and clinking glasses. Tables were draped in white linen, and waiters in black suits carried trays of food I couldn't even name. Around the room, men and women mingled in elegant clothes, their confidence radiating like light. For a moment, I thought about turning around and walking out, but Sarah slipped her arm through mine. "We've come this far," she said softly. "Let's see it through." We found our table, marked with a small card bearing our farm's name. Seeing it printed there, neat and official, gave me a strange thrill. I sat down, trying not to stare too much at the people around us. Some of the other farmers looked polished and professional, their hands smooth and unscarred, so different from mine. But others, though they had the same rough edges, the same calluses and sunburned skin, I realized I wasn't entirely out of place after all. During dinner, conversations flowed. A couple from the northern part of the state introduced themselves, talking about their dairy operation. Another farmer described the new irrigation system he had installed. I listened, nodding politely, but inside I felt the familiar doubt creeping in. These people seemed so accomplished, so prepared. Who was I to sit among them? Then something unexpected happened. A man at the next table leaned over and said, "Reynolds, right? I've heard about your farm. You're the one who rebuilt your soil quality without chemicals, aren't you?" I blinked in surprise. "Well, I guess, yeah. We've been experimenting with crop rotation and composting. Nothing fancy." "Nothing fancy?" he grinned. "That's innovation. People have been talking about it." I didn't know what to say. My ears burned and I mumbled a thank you. Sarah beamed at me, her pride shining brighter than the chandeliers overhead. For the first time, I felt like maybe I belonged in that room. As the night went on, I loosened up. I even laughed at a few jokes, shared some of our own farm stories, and listened to others talk about their challenges and triumphs. Beneath the suits and fancy words, they were just people, farmers like me. When we finally returned to our hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted but strangely uplifted. Tomorrow was the big day, the ceremony itself, where the winner would be announced. My stomach knotted at the thought, but there was also a flicker of excitement. Whatever happened, I had made it here. My farm, my work, my life, it had been seen. As I lay down, Sarah curled against me, whispering, "I'm proud of you no matter what happens tomorrow." Her words carried me into sleep, where dreams of fields, applause, and unknown futures blurred together under the soft hum of the city.
The morning of the ceremony arrived with a rush of nerves. I woke before the alarm, the city already stirring outside the hotel window. Car horns echoed down the streets, and the first rays of light reflected off glass towers that seemed to stretch forever upward. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the suit hanging neatly on the chair. Today, that suit would carry me into a moment I had never imagined for myself. Sarah stirred beside me. "Already awake?" she asked, sleepily. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "Feels like my stomach is tied in knots." She sat up, smiling softly. "That just means you care. It's a good thing." I nodded, though I wasn't sure it felt good at all. After breakfast, we dressed in silence, the weight of the day pressing down on us. When I finally slipped into the suit, Sarah straightened my tie with steady hands. "You look perfect," she whispered, and for a moment I almost believed her. The ceremony was held in a grand hall attached to the hotel. As we walked inside, I was struck by the sight. Rows upon rows of chairs filled with farmers, families, officials, and reporters. A stage stood at the front, draped in deep green banners that read Regional Agricultural Achievement Awards. Golden lights shone on the podium, where a microphone waited like a challenge. We found our seats near the front. My palms were already sweating, and I wiped them discreetly against my trousers. Sarah squeezed my hand, her eyes calm even as mine darted nervously around the room. Competitors were scattered throughout, some chatting easily, others sitting stiffly like me. I wondered which of them had been doing this for years, used to being recognized, and which of them were, like me, strangers to the spotlight. The ceremony began with speeches, officials talking about the importance of agriculture, the dedication of farmers, the backbone of our communities. I tried to listen, but my mind buzzed too loudly with anticipation. Every word seemed to drag us closer to the moment I dreaded most. Finally, the announcer stepped forward with a card in his hand. This year's nominees for the Regional Agricultural Achievement Award represent the very best of our state's farming community. Each has demonstrated not only success in their work, but innovation, perseverance, and a deep commitment to the land. He began listing names. My heart pounded as I heard ours. Reynolds Farm. The sound of it over the microphone made my chest tighten. For a fleeting second, I imagined my father hearing it. How proud he would have been to know our small farm was spoken of in a room like this. "And now," the announcer continued, "it is my honor to present the award." The silence that followed was unbearable. My breath caught in my throat, the card seeming to open in slow motion. The name he read out wasn't mine. Applause erupted around us as another farmer rose from his seat, a tall man with a broad smile, shaking hands with those around him as he made his way to the stage. I clapped too, though my hands felt heavy. My heart sank, not with anger, but with a hollow ache of disappointment. For all my doubts, a part of me had dared to hope. Sarah leaned close, whispering, "It doesn't change anything. You're still here. You're still recognized." I nodded, forcing a smile as the winner gave his speech. He spoke well about his family, his farm, his dreams. The crowd cheered, and I knew he deserved it. But still, a quiet voice inside me whispered, "What if it had been you?" After the award was given, the announcer added something I hadn't expected. This year, we also want to acknowledge several farms with special commendations for their outstanding contributions. These are not winners of the main prize, but they embody the spirit of innovation and dedication we wish to honor. My head lifted, curiosity flickering. The announcer read off a few names. Then he said, "Reynolds Farm." The sound of it struck me like lightning. I froze, staring at Sarah. Her smile widened, eyes shining with pride. "Go," she urged. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I walked to the stage, each step echoing louder than the applause that followed. Standing under the lights, I felt both exposed and strangely powerful. The announcer shook my hand and handed me a plaque, smaller than the main trophy, but gleaming all the same. My name was etched into it. Recognition, not imagined, not mistaken, real. I turned to the audience. For a moment, the words stuck in my throat. Then I remembered Sarah's voice from nights before. Maybe this isn't about being the biggest or the richest. Maybe it's about heart. I cleared my throat, speaking into the microphone. I didn't expect to be standing here today. For years, I've worked on a small patch of land, just trying to keep it alive. There were times I wondered if it was worth it. Times I thought nobody noticed, nobody cared. But this shows me that hard work matters. That even when you feel invisible, someone is watching. And I'm grateful for my wife, for my neighbors, for this community. Thank you. The applause that followed washed over me like a tide. I stepped down, heart pounding, the plaque heavy in my hands. It wasn't the grand award, but it was something even more meaningful to me. Proof that what I'd done mattered. Back at our seats, Sarah kissed my cheek. "I told you, recognition comes in many forms." The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. People congratulated me afterwards, shaking my hand, asking questions about the farm. For the first time, I spoke with confidence, sharing where I knew, what we had built. They listened. They cared. And in that moment, I realized Sarah had been right all along. This wasn't about being the biggest or the richest or the most modern. It was about heart, perseverance, and the willingness to keep going when it would be easier to quit. Later that evening, when we returned to the farm, the sun was just dipping below the horizon. The fields glowed gold in the fading light, and the cows lowed softly from their pasture. Everything was just as we had left it, yet somehow, everything felt different. I walked to the barn, plaque still in my hand, and leaned against the old wooden door. This farm, this life, it wasn't glamorous, it wasn't perfect, but now I knew it was seen, and that was enough. Sarah came up behind me, slipping her arms around my waist. "So," she asked playfully, "still think it was all a mistake?" I laughed, the sound carrying out into the quiet evening. "No," I said softly, "not anymore." And as the stars began to appear above us, I felt a deep peace settle over me. The farm had not just survived, it had been recognized. And in that recognition, I found something I hadn't realized I'd been searching for all along. Validation, hope, and the courage to keep going.
Thanks for watching. Don't miss the next story.